Hey listener, welcome to another episode of the Listener Suggestion Summer Bonanza here at We Read It One Night, the podcast where two sisters lead the romance revolution. Today we're heading on down to New Orleans as we chat about Yes and I Love You by Roni Loren, the chill, lovely love story of entertainment critic Hollyn and improv dude Jasper. In this book, no one gets serial killed, someone may live in a shed, and we definitely get a happily ever after. Don't forget to rate and review, and enjoy the show.
This is usually a pretty cat-focused podcast, well, also dogs, but I have a new dog hack for all of you out there, whether it be animal lovers or burglars. If a dog is like not super into you or is like a little bit standoffish, that happened to me over the weekend. Like I met a puppy for the first time and like she was kind of, she wasn't like scared. She let me like pet her a little bit, but like wasn't like all over me. But then I took a shower using the same shampoo as her mom and dad. And she was literally all over me for the whole rest of the time. Like I came downstairs with wet hair and she like immediately ran into my lap and was like trying to like bite my hair. And then like even after that, like she was just that's
trying to bite your hair.
Well, like sniff it and then like sort of then she started playing with it, but like then she was just like mostly me, not the hair, but like the hair is definitely the link, I think. The smells, you gotta smell like her, like their owners.
Really emotionally manipulate the dogs.
Well, ideally do that like if you are actually a safe person. Like I don't know.
Well, I don't know. You recommended this to burglars.
Well,
too,
I realized
Rachel.
that would be an application. Yeah.
Like I wouldn't consider burglars a safe space for dogs.
Yeah.
Like in general,
tricky
go with burglars there.
Tricksy.
I can't think of a way to relate that to this week's book other than the fact that our heroine may or may not live in a shed, and that probably makes her more prone to burglars.
She lives in a shed?
She calls her house a shed at some point, and I was very confused the whole book about whether she lives in a literal shed or like that's just what she was calling it. Anyway, this week we're doing Yes and I Love You by Roni Loren, right? Loren.
I think so,
Loren,
yeah.
Loren.
This was a listener suggestion.
Woo! It's part of our listener suggestion summer.
So Yes and I Love You. And what I realized like 10 minutes after finishing this book is that it's called that because like it involves improv. Like
a
the
lot
hero
of improv.
is like an improv actor. So it's like you're supposed to always say yes and like an improv. So it's like yes and. Because I was waiting the whole time for there to be a scene where like I don't know. For some reason I came up with this like image of like asking some like random unrelated question and the person's like yes. And I love you. Like, I don't know.
I was getting that vibe too. I do feel you confessing that you didn't figure out what the title meant until after you finished the book does make me feel a little bit better because it only took me like 75% of the book to be like, well,
it's not like I was like puzzling over it the whole time. I just like, I looked at it. I was like, I don't know why it's called that. I'm waiting. And then like, didn't think about it. And then like it ended and I was like,
I was listening. I was like sitting on the couch listening to the audiobook. And for whatever reason, I was like looking at the audiobook cover. And it just like clicked into place for me. And I was like, oh my God, this has been an improv pun this whole time.
Oh my God.
Honestly, I felt a little bamboozled. Like it just seems like such an innocuous title and it's actually like has deeper improv roots.
Yeah,
it felt a little bit like a scam in some ways. And now I wonder, because it's the first book in a series, so I wonder whether the other two books in the series have like secret pun names as well. I don't know if they all have to do with improv. I know, but it's not like, especially because the title is like it's like an ampersand instead of spelling out and.
Right. I did that.
And I feel like the improv like yes and is like, because it's the whole point is you're not supposed to say no to people in improv. You're supposed to just like expand.
Yeah, I did also have the thought of like the ampersand was a weird choice, but I mean it looks fine,
stylistically it looks better, I think, but like in terms of getting across that this is an improv pun, didn't really achieve that. It took me a long time. Maybe that's just us though. Maybe we're just like maybe as soon as like improv is introduced in this book, like everyone else is like, yeah, I get it, nice.
Yeah, I feel like comma would have been the most obvious, but I don't know. Book takes place in New Orleans along the Mississippi River. Have you ever been to New Orleans? Which I feel like is refreshing. I don't read because she was in a city, and I was like, "All right, so it's gonna be New York." And then she was like, "I'm
Yeah.
walking along the Mississippi River," and I was like, "Ooh, a twist." Like,
A twit like, the
yeah,
South and, like
a city, not a small town.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, because it's usually if it's in the South, it's like a small town. It's either,
right,
like, New York, LA,
or a small
maybe,
town.
like, Seattle, maybe
Yeah, like,
sometimes
maybe.
sprinkling in, like, Seattle or Portland are,
Right,
like, in there. But
right.
yeah,
Yeah, because as soon as I said Mississippi River, I was like, "Wait, I thought they were in a city." Like, I'm confused, and then I realized that, like, city
you
like, you know,
realize
I
that, like
spent a long time living in, like, a city in arguably the South. Like, yeah. Funny. That's nice. I wonder if the author I tried to look it up, but, like, gave up quickly, like, if the
whether
author
she's
is
from
from
Nolans?
Nolans, yeah. And our main character is Hollyn, no D, and to me
Hollyn.
yeah, that felt like when you were describing, like, Colleen Hoover book ty
Yes.
type book names, and then her fucking last name is
Yes!
Tate. Colin Tate. Oh
I
my
was like,
god.
this name, and I quite frankly, because this is a listener suggestion, like a lot of the books that aren't listener suggestions that we do, like are books that we've already read before, like we know what to expect, like we know that we
Mhm,
like them. But like listener suggestions, a lot of times we haven't read the book before. And so I was
mhm.
like, no. And like not again, not in like not because I disliked Ugly Love or like dislike Colleen Hoover, but because I was like, I don't know whether I'm emotionally prepared to read this kind of book
Right,
right now. Cause like I have to be in an emotional, like a specific
right.
state
To be,
in
like,
order to be able
devastated,
to,
yeah.
right. I was like, oh, I don't
Right,
know. And I was
right.
very like Holland and then Tate, just Tate is like the
Yeah,
quintessential, that kind of book name. And I
yep.
was so terrified. It's not at all. And you know, frankly, I was very happy to like have an exception to this name rule that
Yeah.
has otherwise been 100% accurate in every other
Yeah, because there's
experience.
definitely trauma, but, like, in general, I would say this book felt very much like a rock skipping on a lake.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good
That's yeah,
description.
yeah,
It felt very much like a beach read. Like something you
right,
just kind of like you're chilling on the
right.
beach, the ocean is lapping in the distance, the sun, you're just like hanging out, maybe
Mhm,
someone's playing some music and you're just like reading this book in your little beach chair.
mhm. So Holland has Tourette's, which if you're I mean, I think most people are familiar with Tourette's, but basically it's a neurological disorder that you have tics. So the tics can be either physical, so like facial, like you can't control it obviously. So like facial like expressions, or it can be verbal, so like saying random phrases when you would like in the middle of speaking.
And I would say like the Tourette's stereotype is like boy like
Obscenity, like yelling
randomly like yeah
obscenities.
like yelling
Yeah.
curse words in the middle of class
Yeah.
or whatever and
Yeah.
that is very much a stereotype and I actually did because I was like looking up I was reading an NHS article about Tourette's and it was specifically like actually obscenities are like very rare for
Yeah,
that to be a
I
thing.
think it's I looked into this a little bit a while back, but I think it's, like, common for just to be, like just, like, what you hear. So, like, if you happen to hear a lot of obscenities and, like, sort of
Right.
that's what your brain chooses to latch onto, but, like, it can be, like,
Right.
anything, like, any phrase or whatever.
I did think it was interesting that Holland she doesn't really have verbal tics. All of her tics
Mhm.
are like physical. And
Mhm.
that wasn't like it wasn't like I like didn't know that Tourette's could include physical tics, but like I feel like you never really think of
Mhm.
physical tics for that. Like it's people usually think of like verbal.
There's a girl that I follow on TikTok who has Tourette's, and she has both verbal and physical, but, like, h Holland's tics, like she's embarrassed by them, and it gives her a lot of social anxiety, but it doesn't seem to, like, actually interfere with her, like, being able to do things, whereas, like, the girl I follow on TikTok, like, her physical takes, like, she did a video where she was, like, baking a cake and, like, her hand, like, she, like, would
Oh,
spill
it
things,
would like
or, like, not be
spasm.
yeah, or, like, throw an egg or something.
Well, I think Holland seemed to be much more like they affect how she interacts with people socially because she's constantly like meeting new people and because a lot of her tics are like grimaces or like other like expressions that make it seem like she doesn't like what's happening like people are like
Right.
oh like she's standoffish like she doesn't like me because she also struggles from social anxiety.
Yeah, and she's like she didn't have a resting bitch face, she had a resting twitch face. Yeah, that was good. So Holland, because of her social anxiety, she's 24, 25, but she lived at home
I
until
don't know.
recently.
I was really trying to figure out because they kept mentioning. So our hero's name is Jasper Dearest,
Mhm,
not Dearest,
mhm.
specifically not with a T. And they multiple times like are like he's 25. Like we
Mhm.
hear that over and over and over again. But I can't remember ever hearing how old Holland is. Either way, though, both of the times I was like, I'm 25. This man is so young. Like, what is he doing? Like, committing to it's just like very
Yeah.
off put by the fact
Yeah.
that they were the same age as me and they like get engaged by the end of the book. And I was
Yeah,
like,
I
oh
know.
no.
I know. And because like so many other things, I mean, like it's explicitly like part of the plot that he's like sort of
that he's 25. Yeah.
right. That he's
It's
like,
like,
yeah, hasn't like moved into fully like I don't
yeah.
know. She's been living with her mom until recently, but like a year ago after, therapy, I mean, she's still in therapy, but she decided to try moving out, and she has a job running an anonymous like entertainment blog basically. She's like a freelancer for a company, and she can like work from home, but she has like as part of her like stepping out into the world, she like has been renting office space in this like
Yeah.
workaround, which I think would be like I don't know, I feel like it's a good business model. Like I feel like that would be a
No,
very
that's a
easy business
thing.
to run. I know it's a thing. I'm just saying like as far as like I don't know, I have like a hobby of like cataloging like businesses that would be like easier or harder to run. Like I had no desire to like but I feel like that's one where it's like it would be kind of fun to like design like a nice, like have like a nice space and like it wouldn't be that much
Yeah.
work. I mean, maybe it'd be hard to find clients. I have no idea.
Yeah, it was very and her blog is called Ms. Poppy, specifically MIZ Poppy. There's a lot of emphasis put on the fact that her avatar is like a hot cartoon like vixen,
Yeah.
and that like she gets a lot of like dick pics and like
Oh yeah, I
people
forgot about
asking her
that. Oh my
out
god.
because we
Yeah.
can we're still setting it up, but like that like people are constantly asking her out and they have a crush on her and she's like, oh, they're just in love with the cartoon, and I'm like, I don't know, like it's like seems like a stretch that like that would be the reason that you would get so many people. Like, I don't know. I was like, it's still a cartoon. Like you realize that, right?
So
like we open up with like her having this like girl power moment in her head. She like walks into work, she's like strutting, she's like, I am Meg Ryan in every
movie,
rom-com, like I'm gonna have a meet cute, it's gonna be great. And I'm just imagining like specifically the opening scene of Legally Blonde, like that's what I was picturing in my head, like
I love
her
it.
instead of like the woman on the bike with Perfect Day in the background, like it's Hollyn walking down like the street going
Wow.
Perfect Day, but then like immediately it's like record scratch, like, and it was like a little bit painful because I was like, oh, I really relate to like having that image in your head of like, oh, it's gonna be great, I'm gonna rock, I know exactly how this is gonna go. It's just not. It's the exact opposite.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. She rolls in. The usual coffee person isn't there.
Jackie, the barista.
Yeah, who's like we
bitch.
never meet her. Yeah, but she runs into Andy, who's like another woman that works there, and Andy's like, "Hey, like, there's no coffee. Like, why don't we walk across the street? Like, I bet like Monique, the woman who runs the building, will reimburse us." And Hollyn has to be like. She's like, I want my coffee, but like, I don't want to interact with Andy. And so Andy's like, well, why don't I just like get it and bring it to you? Like, she like won't let it go. And Hollyn's fine, like, fine. Like, I feel bad, but like, fine. Then she's like, give me a decaf. And Andy's like, what? Like decaf? And Hollyn's like, damn it. Like, I never even drank coffee. The reason I started drinking any coffee was because people would remark if I like, because it's weird to not drink coffee. So Hollyn goes up to her office.
Andy is like, so yeah, Andy's one of the workplaces. She's like she's in true crime.
Oh my
she's
God,
like a true crime podcaster. And this is very important to Andy's character. And we don't have to talk about this now, but just know she's a true crime podcaster. And Hollyn is like, podcasters are always so chatty because like everyone they meet is like their next potential guest. And I'm like sitting here and I was like, as a podcaster, like, I got news for you. I use up my weekly chatting quota, like, when we record these episodes. And then I am all chatted out for, like, the next 7 days. I was like, I don't know, like, maybe other podcasters are different.
No, I mean, she's thinking of she's thinking of just, like, a different format. Like,
yeah, so, like, an interview format.
Yeah.
I know, but still, like, even, like, I feel like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
It's so much.
Yeah. So she goes to her office and opens her email, and it's the aforementioned, like, dick pic, like, but it's specifically a penis fucking a high-heeled shoe.
Yes.
Like, for some reason.
Yes.
And she like sits with her back to the door, which like okay, that's terrible. Like, I would never sit with my back to the door. However, it is like the struggle of like, do I want to see the window or do I want to, you know what I mean? Like I like definitely like I always want to be like facing the window. But also simultaneously not have my back to the door. Like that's.
I also just don't want people to be able to see my screen.
Yeah, exactly.
Without me knowing that they can.
Yeah, exactly. And lo and behold, that danger comes to light when someone knocks on her door. And she's like, I automatically went into if I stay still, maybe they won't see me mode.
Like other people are just T-Rexes. Like.
Yeah, it's a guy with her coffee, and he's basically like, here's your coffee, like, Andy asked me to bring it to you, like, I'm the new barista or whatever, and she's like, "Fuck, fuck, fuck," and then he, like, makes some joke about her screen, and she's like, "It's just spam," and he's like, "Okay, like, whatever you say." I don't know.
He's like, all right, like I'm not here to kink shame. Like, whatever.
Yeah, and because we get his perspective at this point, and he's like, "Hi, I'm Jasper," and then, like, she doesn't say anything, and he's like, and she's like, "I'm busy."
Yeah. So he calls her Miss Busy for like the next 2 chapters.
Oh, I didn't even oh, yeah. Well, I thought it was funny because, like, he ought like, she says that, like, as if, like, "Go away, I don't wanna talk to you." But, like, I actually knew someone named Busy. Like, there was a girl on
Busy
my swim team.
Phillips too.
No. Oh, yeah, yeah, right, and
No,
it's a
I'm saying
nickname
that's
for
an actress. It's a famous
yeah, yeah, it's a
actress.
nickname for Elizabeth, like, so it was kind of I don't know, I guess her body language probably tells him, like
Well, no, I mean, like that's like an end of a scene that has already like become like increasingly awkward. And I was okay, so this was like the first of many I feel like maybe the best term to use is like fake outs, like not intentional fake outs by the author, but fake outs of my own making, where like I expect basically the opposite out of a scene because I just feel like especially because she was having a fantasy about like having a meet cute like
Right.
3 pages before this. I was like, this man appears at the door. We don't immediately know who he is. We don't know his name. And so like immediately upon finding out his name, I like went to go check the description to like make sure that he was the hero because I was like,
Right.
oh no, is he going to be like the dick that she falls in love with first? And then like she meets the hero somewhere like, and this was, yeah, the first of like many times where I was like, oh, clearly it's going to like go in this twist direction. And then it
Right.
just didn't. It just
But
went, this book was
just
very straightforward. Like there was
yes.
nothing, but it was also incredibly tricky because I kept expecting it to not be straightforward and then it would be straightforward. So I was like, oh, okay. Like, and that's not the
Yeah.
book. Like that's on me. Like that's me overanalyzing like this
Right, or
book
like,
as I was reading it. Like
tropes.
that's not the book's fault. But yeah, I was constantly like, surely it will go in this direction. And then it just nope,
Yeah.
kept chugging along.
Yeah. So now we're in Jasper's head. Jasper, the coffee barista man, he's back down at his work and he runs into one of his old friends from when he was in foster care. He was in foster care and his friend Fitz is like, "Hey bro, like I now am like a financial advisor for people who want to retire early. Like you want to sign up?" And Jasper's like I forget how he phrased it.
He's
He's
like, I
like,
have not a penny to my
"Yeah."
name. No, sir. Wait,
Yeah.
but it was so funny because I was listening to the audiobook. Like, so they say it's like the FIRE movement, right? It's like wait, was it
Financially
financial
independent,
something?
retire early.
Yeah, financial independent, retire early. And that's like a movement and I've heard of it. I know that movement. But because I was listening to the audiobook, I didn't see that it was like, an acronym. So
Yeah.
at first I thought I was like, his business is like helping people make fire plans, like for like escaping fires, like out of building. I was like I was like, that is an incredible, like, I'm sure that exists, but like what a niche business to go
Close
into.
your doors at night, kids. Prevents fires.
Yeah. You want to give that fact?
Yeah, so I actually like for some reason growing up, I always kept my door cracked because I remember I always thought like, oh, if there's a fire, like I want the firefighters to be able to get in easily. And apparently most people think that, like according to surveys, but it's actually the
Uh-huh.
exact opposite. Like, you should shut your door. Like you can look up pictures of like the entire house is like, literally charred and black, but like the one room is good because the door like prevents like fires need oxygen, right? So it like prevents it from like
Yeah.
going into your room and like keeps the temperature way lower and like will literally save your life. So like shut your door at night. Ideally, shut all the doors in your house if you can. If there's like a small fire in one room and you're trying to run away, like shut the door behind you because if it's safe. If like if you can safely do
Yeah.
it because it'll prevent it from like going into the rest of your house. So
Yeah.
the issue that like people immediately pointed out that I should have thought of on TikTok though is like cats.
Yeah.
Cats don't love closed door. I guess like a cat door in every door would be good.
Yeah. Install a cat door in every door.
In every room.
house.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, so initially I was like, what a niche job to have, Fitz, random childhood friend who has like
Right.
appeared randomly, but like, okay. And at first I thought, so he's like, oh, you do improv, and Jasper does an improv group, and he and his friends are called Hail Yes, which I thought was funny.
Because why is that? It's because Jasper Hale. That was my first thought from Twilight.
What?
Like that was
I don't know. I
what's
thought
the
maybe it would be like
connection?
D&D themed, like hail and well met, my dudes, but like
Oh,
no,
how's it
but it's not
spelled?
D&D themed. I really don't know. It was just a fun name and I enjoyed hearing the audiobook narrator say it. Like I was just like the vibes of having
Yeah.
that name said it out loud was something
I
that
could
I really
not
enjoy.
figure out why it was called that though. I was picturing
Yeah,
HALE.
there's not like a reason. It's just like a pun, but you don't
Well,
really know
but
like why it's a pun.
are you sure it's not a Twilight pun? Because there were so many like that era cultural, like pop culture references sprinkled throughout. I could
No,
easily
because
see.
I feel like it was, I mean, obviously I read the audiobook, so I don't know, but I feel like it was spelled Hail, like hail as in like hailing a cab,
Maybe.
versus Jasper Hale from Twilight is
Um,
Hale.
let's see.
I
I
don't
can
know. Either way.
I
Okay,
can get
okay.
what you were
So
saying.
Fitz is encouraging Jasper to buy a theater to essentially like have like a permanent improv group theater place. And at first I thought he was encouraging him to like buy old houses that he could like flip and then like use as Airbnbs. And I was like, Fitz, why are you encouraging Jasper to contribute to the New Orleans housing crisis? This is a big problem of people buying up all these properties for Airbnbs and then the actual residents not being able to have anywhere to live. But then I realized he was talking about a theater and I was like, okay, that's fine. And then I was like, oh, to have a long lost childhood friend appear and give me free like business advice and eventually basically completely transform my life, like get me investors and give me a sweet place to stay.
No, and like he does all that and it's awesome, but like in real life, I feel like the way that goes is like, oh, you run into your childhood friend, they like try to say shit like that and then try to sell you life insurance, you know?
They try to sell you like knives. They try to get you to become a knife salesman.
That kind of shit. Exactly. They like say all of it, but it's like a total like
it was so that this was another situation of like a fake out.
Yeah.
That was again not the book's fault. It was me like looking too much into this book. Like again, like you said, this book was like a rock along the surface of a pond, and I kept expecting the rock to fall into the pond, and it didn't, because I was like, oh no, Fitz is going to be a villain. He's somehow going to screw him over. No,
like it has
Fitz
one
just
direction
keeps getting better and better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vary from it. So yes, they're on that.
So Jasper's like, no, I couldn't possibly buy a theater. No, that's too ambitious for me. I can't do it. I'm poor and I'm living with my adopted sister Gretchen and I'm still on my parents' health insurance, which he gets judged for later. And I would just like to say, stay on your parents' health insurance for like our Lord and Savior Barack Obama, like comrade Barack Obama says that you should be able to stay on your parents' health
like
insurance.
Come on. Right.
I was like, excuse me, you can pry our mom's health insurance out of my cold dead hands.
Why the fuck can't you be on literally whoever you want's health insurance? Like, why isn't health insurance like a phone plan? Like, you can share a phone plan with anyone. Why are we like, it's stupid.
You know why? Because the American healthcare, and this book was very clear about how shitty the American healthcare system
I almost forgot about that. Yeah,
I was like, I appreciate this, Roni.
So yeah, Hollyn's best friend is Cal, who also has Tourette's. His tics are mostly verbal, but like very non-disruptive. And half the time, I thought what he was saying like made sense. Like I thought his tic like made sense in the sentence. Weirdly, like I don't know.
He says hella good a lot.
Yeah.
And then he says like, what is it? Panic Station and like Rolling Stone. Like a lot of them are like music themed because he's a musician, TM.
Right. So they're chatting and he's like, you need to get out there. Like, why? Like, I don't want you to be alone in the big city. Like, I'm going to come up and visit you soon. And she's like, I don't want to become a shut-in with like 6 cats. It haunts my nightmares. And I was like, all right, girl. Then she's like, plus I'm allergic to cats. And I was like, no, like that's a huge, Hollyn,
no. Catskill took a hit. Catskill took a huge hit with that.
Nosedive, like the pebble in the lake would never take. So Cal and Hollyn used to date. They'd known each other since they were kids, and they used to date for like a year in college. Yeah. But then they broke up and they stayed friends.
So basically, Cal is like, I know you embarrassed yourself in front of that guy. He like she like tells him about like, I made a fool of myself at the workspace.
Mm-hmm. I had to go to a new one. Like I can't go there anymore.
He's like, no, stick it out. Like you're doing so well. And so the next day she goes in and she apologizes to Jasper. And he also casually mentions that he really likes Ms. Poppy, but she's anonymous, so he doesn't know that it's her.
And he's like, funny women are my kryptonite. It's like, yes, Jasper. I guess he's literally a comedian, but like
he's constantly making jokes. He's like fully in some ways like the couple dynamic in Mrs. Doubtfire, like Robin Williams and Sally Field, where like Robin Williams is always like he's never serious, and like Sally Field is constantly having to be the bad guy, and that's ultimately why they get a divorce at the beginning of that movie. I was like, I don't know, and I kind of see that future for this because it feels like hot. Like At the
Oh.
beginning of the book, I was like that. By the end, I was like, okay, like Jasper does know how to be serious. But at the beginning, he's like literally everything he says is like a joke or like a
Oh,
sarcastic
interesting.
comment.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I don't know.
But I also thought she did, like, a good job because okay, it's hard to tell the audience that something is funny and then have it actually be funny. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
So if you're trying to write, like, it's just, like, hard to do, but she did a good job of just, like, skipping over it like a rock on a lake, like, not actually, like sometimes she wrote, like, the actual jokes, but, like, a lot of times she would just be like,
Yeah.
it was a good sketch, like, whatever, like, so I don't know. I thought that was good for me. So Hollyn is now being adopted by Andy, who's the aforementioned, true crime podcaster. She just, like, comes in, sits on her in her chair, and is like she's like, "Oh, it's like, I saw you chatting with that barista, like, do you want me to run a background check on him? Do you want me to run a back" And Andy is, like, exactly the person who should not be into true crime because she's like, "It keeps me up at night." Like, I literally am, like, scared to go on dates. I'm scared. I, like, can't sleep because of, like, all this shit that, like, I'm reading about. And I'm like, literally,
She
like,
also writes horror. She's writing a horror novel.
yeah, and I'm like, "What the fuck?" Like, I can't handle like, I stay up at night thinking about stuff, and yet, like, I'm fine with most true crime. So
Yeah.
if you're like, you can't why would you ever, like, do that to yourself? Why would that be your interest? I don't understand. Like,
How do we feel about true crime?
I think it's very problem I think there's a reckoning coming. I feel like I really see the stirrings.
I think that there's a way to like be into it
Yeah.
unproblematically. Like I don't think it's like entirely bad, but I do think the way that like true crime was developed in like recent years, it's like it's a commodification and like people forget that like the families of
Yeah,
victims are real
exactly.
people and like the victims are real people and so they'll like contact the families and I was reading a Twitter thread of someone I think there was some sort of like maybe Hulu or Apple TV show. There was something. There was like a recent show that came out, some streaming platform about some like famous true crime case from like 15 years ago. And
And the family didn't want it.
the daughter of the woman that was murdered was like, yeah, they interviewed us and said, because it was like her like stepdad was like a convicted of murdering the mom, but then it turns out it was actually this like the mom's friend who like was the
Mm.
recipient of the mom's life insurance. So it was like, why didn't you look into
What?
her? It's a really fucked up case. Anyway, we're not going to talk about the case because that's exactly what I'm
Yeah.
saying, that we shouldn't
Yeah.
like do it for entertainment. But basically she was like, they interviewed like the people that were doing that show interviewed us and told us it was a documentary and they turned it's like a fictional like drama that they did.
Mhm.
And they were like, it's like totally re-traumatized me. Like
Yeah.
I like again like that's my mom, this is my stepdad who like the media and the police like ruined my relationship with because like we thought for a long time that he had killed my mom. And yeah, I think that just like a lot of people forget.
Well, a whole nother level of it that I've been seeing and that I think is more common than you would think is that the family just they ask for consent of the family says no, and they still do it.
Yeah.
Like, that's a whole because I've been seeing this, like, girl talking about her sister who was murdered and, like, how they didn't want
Well, people will like call the family and be like, oh, I'm gonna solve this like cold case, and they're like, can you stop like
no,
harassing
it's
me?
not just that, it's just, like, just put yourself in the shoes for a second, like, your family member's murdered and someone's making a documentary about, like, the psychology of the murder, you know? Like, even just
Yeah.
that angle of it, it's like, that's I just can't even imagine. Like, I think it's more okay I mean, okay, I'm not gonna say it's more okay, but, like, for me at least, if it was an unsolved case, I think I would probably be more okay like, I don't know, I think for me, the most disturbing thing would be, like, if we know who the killer is, but they definitely did it, and, like, yet they're still showing it from their perspective, you know, like,
Yeah.
trying to sympathize with the
Yeah. But
killer
even
who's
again, like the unsolved cases I'm saying is people will like harass the family because they just view it as entertainment and they like forget. Yeah. I mean, and I know people I have friends who are really into true crime, and I think that there's definitely a way to like study that kind of stuff without like commodifying
and
it.
there's not all crime is murders too, like, there's like, that one about the scammer guy in Europe who, like, who, like, basically tricked a bunch of women into giving him the money, and, like, the women were involved in it, like, I feel like that's, like, you know, you're getting consent of the people, no one died, they're, like, talking about their experience, you know?
Yeah, but then it's also like there's also the true crime that's like that the famous like art robbery of like that like unsolved like where did all those paintings go, or like the McDonald's guy who was like running that like large McDonald's game, and that's just like that's
Yeah,
insane, you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, exactly, it's, like, not as yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
don't know. It's a complicated issue, and I feel like I've only, just like this book, I'm like a rock along the surface of, like, I haven't like really
know.
done deep dives into this, like the community, but yeah, the whole time. But and also Andy, just like back to the book, Andy's constantly talking about how she's like scared. She's like, oh, there's like a serial killer in Georgia. Like, I'm afraid I'm gonna be serial killed. And so
Yeah.
this another bait and switch, I was like, surely Andy is going to be kidnapped, and the big like third act climax is going to be Jasper and Hollyn having to rescue. No, that did not
Yeah.
happen.
I was expecting that, and then just like, I mean, that's just like a full I wouldn't even put that on us. Like, that's just like Chekhov's gun type shit. Like, I don't know.
Don't
Like, come
put a
on.
person obsessed with true crime if you're
Right.
not going to have her be true crimed.
Well, so yeah, like
I was like, I didn't want her to die, but like, a car chase wouldn't have been amiss.
So, okay, so we cut back to so Jasper and Hollyn have a little, like, coffee convo, I don't know, and they, like, joke about, like
They're like texting,
yeah.
like a
Oh, yeah, they're
little
texting.
flirtatiously, like
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
having
yeah.
fun. Holland's like, "Oh, this is great. Like, I feel so much more comfortable like over text. Like, I feel like I can be myself." Blah 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 blah. At one point, she says something. I forget what this is in relation to, but she's like, "This isn't like middle school. People aren't here to exploit my weak spots." And I'm like, "Yes, what an accurate description of middle school
Oh
experience.
my
Like, middle schoolers are
god.
sharks. Like, you even put
Yeah.
a drip of blood in the water, and they will rip you to fucking
Oh
shreds."
my god. So Jasper, what we haven't mentioned yet is that so Jasper has his improv show and stuff. And like a few months ago or a year ago, like he was dating this girl Kenzie, and Kenzie convinced him to come out to LA to like audition for a show. And he bombed his like audition, and Kenzie ended up doing really well and getting the part, and basically was like, "You're holding me back. Like, we need to break up." So
Yeah.
Jasper had to come like tail between his legs back to New Orleans and move in with his sister. His like improv troupe is like pretty pissed at him too, because he kind of left them in the lurch when he just like blindly followed Kenzie. We mentioned like Jasper was in foster care, but like he has like ADHD. He like bounced around from different foster families. He was found at like he's lived with his birth parents until like age 7, when he was caught like stealing food, like Elle in Stranger Things. Like he was caught by a shop owner, and like that's how he got put in the system. And
Yeah.
so his whole thing is like, I need to prove everyone wrong, like everyone who doubted me, like all the teachers, all the foster parents who like didn't want me, like, and I also need to make my adopted parents proud. I need to like prove to my birth parents that I'm like good enough or whatever.
And yeah, like we said, he does improv, and I just like really, I tried so hard this whole book not to judge Jasper for doing improv. And I know that sounds so mean. And if you're listening to this and you do improv, like I like the few times I've done improv, like it can be really fun. I understand the appeal. I understand why people enjoy doing it. I think there's just such a like cultural touch point of like the guy who does improv and like is it like the art boy who like pretends to be progressive but is actually a dick and like only smokes
Yeah.
hand-rolled cigarettes, and like it's just like there's
Mm-hmm.
like a type. And so it was really difficult for me to divorce that from Jasper. And so
Mm-hmm.
what I tried to keep in my head, I was like, okay, I'm gonna pretend like he's on like Whose Line Is It Anyway? Like I was like, that's funny. I enjoy Whose Line Is It Anyway? That's an improv show. And I mean, that's basically what he does. But I was like, okay, he's the guy from Whose Line. He's the people from Whose Line.
I was just like really unclear on his like theater business plan. It's like for his group, but like, are they gonna have other people there? Like, I just don't. I just really struggled to understand the business model, because I've never been into anything like this, and I just like don't believe that it's feasible.
I think
Like,
it's
I
just
don't
like a
know.
regular show. Like maybe they'll also like rent out the space for like performance it. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not
like
really
how?
sure.
Yeah, you're gonna have a whole theater just for one act? Like, I don't get it.
I
Is
don't
that a
know.
thing? I don't know. Whatever. Yeah, I don't know. Well, their current location is bad. That's like why he wants the theater. So they're having a show tonight. And coincidentally, or actually not coincidentally, Hollyn decides to show up and review as Ms. Poppy. And Jasper is like up on stage, and the way that they start like this particular game or show or whatever is by having audience members yell out words, and then he like goes off with that and like a monologue and gets them started.
Yeah, but it's like a true story specifically.
Right,
Like
right. Like
the
he just
right.
like it's like jogs his memory. So like the word someone yells out, I forget what it is. It's
The
like
serial killer.
serial
It's serial
killer.
killer.
And Jasper's like, yeah, like this week I started a new job. I met this girl who really likes serial killers. Like she's so into them. But I also met this other girl who like looked like she might be a serial killer, because she kept making faces at me. Like she looked like I smelled bad. And like
Yeah.
that's the joke. And Holland's in the crowd.
And he sees Holland. And I was like, oh, fabulous.
Right. Oh, so going back to like how she kind of like skips over stuff, like with this monologue, Jasper specifically has the thought like I'm not necessarily trying to be funny with the monologue because like if I'm too funny, then the improv will be flat. And I was like, that's a good way to take the pressure off of yourself, Roni Loren. Like it doesn't have to be funny.
Yeah, no, in general, like I'm glad we didn't have the whole improv
Right. Yeah.
thing on the show. Like, and first of all, I thought this was like a really cool improv format.
Yeah.
I've never seen people improv like that, but it was very
Yeah.
interesting. But just like in general, like performances, presentations, speeches, like it's not even just comedy for me. It's like anytime you force me to listen to someone like giving some sort of prepared like thing, it gives me a similar feeling to what I would feel if a man wrote a song for me and then forced me to listen to him play it like to me one-on-one, you know, like that, like on his guitar. And I just had to be like, sure. Yeah. And just not know how, like similar vibes to that. And I think maybe it's just because like, I don't know, all those like play like performances, presentations, like all that stuff, like it's verbal obviously because it always involves words, but like it's a visual format that I just feel like for me personally doesn't often translate well on the page and just sort of makes me feel uncomfy. And so I was glad, like I feel like Roni Loren for the most part was like, all right, there's a cutoff. I'm going to show you the very beginning and then we're going to fast forward. And or like in this situation, Jasper is going to leave the stage.
Yeah, because he notices Hollyn and Hollyn like she's like, I can't believe he would like do this. Like, even though, I mean, I don't know, like she hasn't told him she has Tourette's at this point. She hasn't explained at all.
But she does say later in the conversation, she's like, it wouldn't have been okay for you to make fun of me even if like I didn't have Tourette's. She's like, you still would have been a dick, especially because like she apologized, you know what I mean? Like she came up, she apologized. They'd been having a good conversation, you know, and like over text.
Oh, for sure. But like, I guess I'm just thinking of like Mrs. Maisel. I don't know if you ever watched that show, but just like comedians in general. I just feel like if you're, I don't know. I mean, you should probably have a talk about like whether you're okay with it, but I just feel like comedians, you do use stuff from your life. And like, I feel like a lot of comedians like make fun of their, you know, just like do things like that with their family and friends. I guess the difference is like you would talk about them with them before. Yeah, or like remember on the Kardashians, like Kim, you talk about them beforehand. You talk about it with them beforehand, right. I guess is the difference. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And it's even like sometimes they do stuff with like strangers. It's different when it's like someone that you're going to see the next day, like someone you're going to interact with and like someone that you're like developing a friendship. Like it's just like, why? Like, yeah, why would you?
Didn't talk about it? Because I could have seen like if let's say they like did become friends and he's like, oh, like when I first met you and like didn't know anything, like I thought you like really didn't like, you know, can I make a sketch about that? I don't know. I guess it would just depend.
Right. Like it's different. Yeah. Like, yeah, it's all about consent. Just like the true crime thing. It's all about consent. Like,
oh yeah. So she runs out and Jasper like runs after her, but he's like he's like wheezing, he's like red faced, and like Hollyn's like, oh, what?
He also had before the improv show, he arrives and he has like a pain in his side.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I had to jog here and like I'm running on 4 cups of coffee and that's it. So like that's why I have a pain on my side.
Right.
But for some reason, my brain immediately when he arrived, like before we even get this later scene, he arrives at the beginning of the show and I was like, is his appendix bursting? My brain immediately was like, it's his appendix, isn't it?
It's weird. I usually always like immediately know the appendix. For some reason this time I was like puzzling about it until like he was literally like, because Hollyn was like, I think I just like didn't notice that he was like out of breath like until Hollyn's like, oh, who's following me? Oh, it's a strange man. Oh, it's Jasper. And she's like, wow, like I thought he looked pretty athletic. Like maybe he's just one of those like people that look athletic but like don't actually exercise. So I was like, oh yeah, maybe Jasper's just like,
maybe that's it.
Like that checks out. And he follows her and he's like wheezing. He's like, I'm so sorry. Like, you know, please forgive me. And Hollyn's like, no, fuck off. Like, don't talk to me again.
Yeah, she's like, I have Tourette's, you asshole. And he's like, oh, I never would have done it if I'd known you had Tourette's. And she's like, it's still not okay, even if I didn't have Tourette's. She's like, so you just would have been making fun of me.
But he's basically, all right, fine. You never have to talk to me again. But would you mind calling 911 first? like, I literally am like in pain. And she's like, oh my fucking God. Like, fine. I'll drive you. It'll be faster.
I was like, no way. Like, this is such a random, like, boomerang in the plot. His appendix was, and I was like, yes, the classic medical emergency interrupts a fight technique, followed by the good old he forgot his phone in her car, so she has to sit by his hospital bed trope. I was like, what a combo.
The appendix is like eminently believable though, because like I can think of 2, maybe 3 people off the top of my head that like something similar has happened to.
I know, but it felt like it came. I was like, okay, now his appendix is bursting. And it didn't. I mean, it's mentioned later on because he's like, oh, I have all these medical bills, and it kind of like screws him over financially. But like, it's not a really big part of the plot other than the fact that it like gets them to be friends.
Mm-hmm. And the next morning, he like wakes up and she's like sleeping in a chair next to him in the hospital. Jasper's first thought when he like wakes up and sees her is like, this is how she'd look if she woke up next to me in bed. Like,
oh my God, he's constantly
like, is this just my need to be
look if I banged her against the wall?
Yeah.
Like, Jasper, you horny motherfucker. He's so horny. He's constantly talking about jerking off. Literally every interaction they have throughout this book, at some point, either in moment or later on, you learn that after they had the interaction, he went home and jerked off. Like, it is, he's like, I went home, specifically, I wrapped my hand around my cock and I thought of you. And I was like, Jasper.
Yeah.
He's like, every time I've jerked off, I'm going to tell you about it. You're going to know.
She's leaving the hospital and she's like, see you later, Jasper, dearest. And that's the first time he's like, later, Hollyn, darling. Like, that's like their thing for some, like.
Yeah. How did you feel about, we have a nickname?
I didn't mind it. I liked it because it had a reason. Like, dearest, darling.
Yeah. Because she was like, oh, she's like, I don't even know your last name. And he's like, it's dearest, but like without like the T. And she's like, that would be like me saying my name is Hollyn, darling.
This is like the perfect example of like, when like this is all I need. This is all I need for a nickname to be acceptable. Like it's the bar is on the floor. The bar is in hell. Like it's the bare minimum, and I'm fine. But actually, specifically, darling, I will say I'm not totally consistent in my preferences because I'm like darling has really grown on me. I think starting with Akatar, like for some reason, like I just really liked Reese.
Oh, because
and then he says favorite darling. Yeah, I just like that. Darling
just reminds me of my first boyfriend because his last name was literally Darling. And I am a person who, I think I mentioned this in Red, White, and Royal Blue. My contacts in my phone are first and last name. Maybe if it's like someone I just did one class project with, I'll be like honors English or like whatever, like project in their contact, but it's like first and last name. I don't like emojis. I don't like nicknames. It is not good. And every time my ex-boyfriend was in my phone, like I would text people like, why do you have your boyfriend's name as like darling? Like, that's so lame. And I was like, it's literally his name. It's his name. It was so embarrassing.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And then the next big scene that I have is that like Jasper gets his first medical bill and he's like, shit, like this is gonna wipe me out financially. And then at this point he's like, because he's sleeping on his sister's couch. At this point, his sister basically, she kicks him out because she's moving in with her boyfriend Timothy. And then she essentially tells him that he's too old to be on their parents' health insurance.
Yeah.
And I was like, Gretchen, get the fuck out of. I was like, how old are you, Gretchen? Like 28?
Right.
Like, when did you go off your parents? I was like, what the fuck? Like, no.
So Hollyn's working on her next post. I'm gonna try this for the 4th time. And she gets a call from her boss. I'm not blaming you. I just kept forgetting where I was going with this. She gets a call from her boss.
Oh, wait. Sorry. Just in the scene with Jasper and Gretchen. In the scene with Jasper and Gretchen, she's like, what are you going to do? Like, my boyfriend Timothy can get you a data entry job or whatever. And apparently also, like, Timothy is very loud when they have sex, and, like, Jasper roasts Gretchen for it, which is great. But Gretchen's like, what are you going to do? And then he's like, I'm going to buy a theater and run it. And he's like, oh, did I just say that out loud? And then Gretchen laughs at him. And I was like, I mean, it's kind of mean, but, like, I get why she laughed at it.
Yeah.
It's pretty silly. It's a pretty silly thing to suddenly like burst out.
I guess this is a good time to like discuss this, but Jasper is like so not the typical romance hero. Well, at the end he's like successful, but he's like not successful at all. And he's also not like He just like very much does not have it together.
I mean, I didn't really think of this when I was reading it. This felt very much like adult, but like, and maybe it's again just because like he's
At the life
the
stage,
same age as me.
Yeah.
But I guess there was almost sort of like a new adult element to it.
Right. And it was, I don't know, I was a little frustrated with Jasper, maybe unfairly. I don't know, but like just his whole like I can't possibly like get a job and support myself. I need to pursue my like probably very unrealistic comedy career, and I'm like, but like I need you to like basically telling like having his sister. I don't know. And honestly there's nothing wrong with that, but like
Well, no, I see what you mean. The whole like, asking other people to support you, like there does have to be a balance, but it is in Jasper's specific case, it is very much like it's implied that like he sort of had his life together and he was making the comedy thing work. Like they were like appearing at a better bar, so presumably they made more money. Like he was like more stable, and then he moved to Hollywood with his girlfriend, and that sort of upended his life financially. And so now he's staying with his sister, and then he's like, but I was saving up because I wasn't paying my sister rent, but like now I have this big medical bill, and like that has totally wiped out my savings.
yeah.
So like I do see what you mean, but like I do think there's an element of like he has just had really, really shitty luck over like the past few years.
Yeah. And I guess I definitely sympathize to like thinking that some kind of data entry job would be like literal living hell, which I think is exactly how he phrases it. So Hollyn, take 5. Hollyn's writing her next post. She gets a call from her boss. And her boss is like, hey, Hollyn, like your posts are doing great. And she's like surprised. He's like, you sometimes get the top numbers. Like you trade back and forth with the restaurant people for the top numbers. And she's like, wow, like who knew? I'm like, how are you not? Would you not be like privy to
No, you
like,
definitely would be.
your own numbers? Yeah, like what? This is like one of a few things like
she's not a salaried like employee, but she's a regular contributor. Like she's not just like a random freelancer.
Yeah, it seemed weird. But he was like, yeah, you're doing so great. Like our top competitor is like Billy whatever Blue or whatever, like he does videos, like I want you to try doing videos so we can compete with him. Hollyn's like, fuck, like that will absolutely not work for me, like I will not do videos. And then her boss is like, well, if you don't do video, we're gonna have to fire you, and since it's in your contract, like we get to keep the Ms. Poppy name, so you're gonna lose that too. And she's like, fuck. Yeah. And she like finagles because
they want to do the
time.
video, reveal her identity.
Oh right, because she's
anonymous. And she does get full salary and benefits if she does it, so they're not just like,
but he's like, oh, I don't have office space, but I could chip in a little for that office space you used. I'm like, dude, you're not even gonna pay for the whole fucking thing, like get out of here.
I know. Yeah. And let that be a lesson, folks. If you own some sort of brand or some sort of trademark that you have like built up, and then you go work like with another company to expand it, make sure that the contract doesn't say that they get to keep the name after you leave.
I was unclear on whether she started it and then
she
started on theirs. Oh, that's shitty. Okay.
She had a successful like movie review blog, and then she started working for them.
Yeah, it's part of like I feel like there's the overarching issue of like bargaining power in like every industry, but the entertainment industry I feel like is getting more attention because I mean, you get it. It's like you start out, you're struggling, like you have no idea if you're going to become successful. So you're like willing to take whatever you can get. But like that just gives all the leverage to put like super unfavorable things in the contract. Anyway, Hollyn manages to buy some time for herself and be like, let me have like a few months to, sharpen my video skills.
6 weeks.
Yeah. And she's like, maybe in that time I can like figure something out. Like this is ridiculous. Also, like, it just seems so stupid to reveal her identity. Like an anonymous reviewer seems so much more effective. Like, why would you want... Because people recognize you.
Like Michelin Star reviewers. Yeah, isn't that how it happens? It's like totally anonymous. Like Michelin Star reviews are like, they protect your identity like you're fucking James Bond, I'm pretty sure. Like that kind of stuff. Like it's like fully, like if anyone even starts to suspect that you may be a Michelin reviewer, like you're out. You're fired.
Right. Because it's obvious. Like the incentives, like they see you coming, they change, like you would change your behavior if you know there's a reviewer. So like why?
Yeah. Anyway, so she hangs out with Jasper again. She's like stressed. I also just want to point out that Jasper compares her tics to a bunny wrinkling her nose. And I was like, yeah, that's really a little bunny rabbit. That's really cute.
Yeah.
And she basically is like stressed, and she accidentally reveals that she's Ms. Poppy, which I was like, you've been keeping this secret for God knows how long, and like one conversation with this man.
Well, she hasn't been having conversations.
It's true.
That's the thing.
True.
She just doesn't. Yeah. Maybe she's not actually good at keeping the secret. She just like hasn't had to keep it for anyone.
And then so basically he's like, oh my God, like that's even worse because like you were going to review our show and like that would have been really big for us. And then like I fucked it up. So basically they have a little deal, a totally platonic, not going to lead to anything deal. He will give her free improv lessons, like private lessons in exchange for an honest review of their show.
Meanwhile, Fitz, the aforementioned fire friend, finds out about Jasper's housing predicament, and he's like a total like Fitz is just like Fitz
is like to have a Fitz in your life
for sure. Well, and Fitz is like, well, other people like foster kids have to look out for each other because like you don't, you have no like family connections. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, Fitz. Like, I mean, not just foster kids, but like in general, just like look out for.
Listen, I would have loved for there to be some sort of for part of Jasper's thing to maybe be some sort of like as part of the theater, he does like a improv camp or like some sort of like program for like foster kids.
He mentioned something like that. He was like, I want to do. Maybe he's just like, I want to make improv. I want to be famous for improv so that other kids can like. But I thought I could have sworn there was some element of like I want to pass it forward. Like I want to make this accessible.
It wasn't something that was like part of the plot. And I would have liked to be like, yeah, like I'm gonna do like for foster kids and like low income kids in the city. Like I'm gonna provide do a youth program with them. Like I think that would have been cool. I don't think that there is necessarily room in the book for it, like as it is right now.
Fitz's apartment. It's funny because they were describing it and I was picturing like the apartment in Big, and then Fitz was like, or Jasper's like, this reminds me of the apartment from Big. Like I was like, that's how it looked. Like it was a very good like visual image. Like I don't even know, like the industrial, like I don't know.
It's like this big penthouse, this like sweet penthouse.
And Fitz gives him this speech about, because he's trying to convince him on the theater thing still, and he's like, there you go. Why not you?
Yeah.
Why not now? Brooklyn Air, baby. I don't know if anyone is gonna remember that, but
I was like, no. It's back. His speech is back. Yeah, and this was also the point where I was like, I know in my soul that like Fitz isn't the villain, but like I was like, he's got to be a villain. Like there's got to be an ulterior motive. He's letting him stay in his sweet penthouse for free, like in exchange for like 10% in the theater when it like gets off the ground. And I was like, surely he's gonna like screw Jasper over. No, it doesn't happen. No. I think I'd like just had a much more negative worldview than all of these characters. Like all of them are just like good people. Like
right. There's like no bad people really. I mean,
no.
Like, okay, so it's time for the improv class, and like Hollyn's like, don't you fucking call on me. Like I'm not talking. And then they play a game. It's like kind of like Duck Duck Goose.
Wait. Like Before they do the game, so Hollyn's there with Andy because they're friends now, and Hollyn has realized that she now has two friends. She has Andy and like Jasper. She's like, wow, this is incredible. Yeah, but she already had Cal.
New friends, yeah.
And she has a moment, like an other people have emotions moment, where like she's like, yeah, Andy, like you're so like extroverted. This is gonna be like so easy for you. And Andy like is basically like, no, I mean, I get like nervous and like afraid to like what and anxious too, like what are you talking about? And Hollyn's like, wow, other people have insecurity.
Yeah.
All right, Hollyn. Yeah. I mean, listen, as someone with anxiety, like it is very easy to assume that like you're the only person feeling this way, but I was like, girl,
I assumed that in like middle school.
I mean, there are definitely still times when I'm like, oh, surely like nobody else is nervous about this and I'm the only one who's like worried. I mean, less so now that I'm on, meds.
Yeah, no.
Anyway, yeah, they play the Duck Duck Goose game.
Yeah, and I thought it was a bit rich that like, so the game is like whoever gets tapped has to like, they're like I remember we used to play this game, at least I used to play this game when I was a kid, or like I remember doing it with mom. Like I feel like we probably did it too, where like you write a story but like one sentence at a time, like you go back and forth.
Yeah, that's a really common game.
Yeah, so that's basically what they're doing, except it's like whenever you get tapped by Hollyn you have to go. And that was a bit rich that Hollyn gets to like not talk at all and yet be the one who wields all the power of putting other people on the spot. Like, girl, you just had your breakthrough, the other people get anxious, why are you doing this to people?
Yeah. Anyway, so all goes well. It's the end of the class, and now it's time for Hollyn's private lessons with Jasper, and Jasper's had his improv friend Monique there to like help run the class with him.
Well, she's the owner of the place. She owns Workaround.
What?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
But she's also in the improv
hired
group?
Yes.
Oh!
She's the one who hired him. Yeah.
Oh, I never put that together.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Good for Monique. Like, what a good like business endeavor that you
rolling
have.
in the dough. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
like,
Yeah.
great. Monique. Where's Monique's book? Frankly,
I don't know.
Where's Monique's
know.
book?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Monique is basically like, you need to watch yourself. Like, I see how you're looking at that girl. Like, you're not ready for a relationship. You're not going to dip on us again. You're not going to abandon us for a lady again.
Right.
Like, you know, watch yourself. And he basically says a whole bunch of really stupid things, but he calls his like deal with Hollyn a quote totally sexless endeavor.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point I was like, and this is a continuing theme for the rest of the book. This never stops happening. And it is that Jasper is continually putting his foot in his mouth to the extent where I was like, this man is like treating his toes like potato chips. Like, that's how often he's putting his fucking foot in his mouth. It's like every other chapter, like, this man cannot get it right.
Oh my God.
Like, oh my God. I was like, oh, I feel like so terrible. Because of course Hollyn overhears him calling it a totally sexless endeavor.
Right. Fuck. And Hollyn's like, wow, I should have known. Like, why would I ever? Not that. Yeah.
Why
Not
would a
that
man
she was
like
expecting.
that be interested in me?
Yeah. Why would a fellow watch a girl like me? Yeah. And okay, so then it's time for their like lesson, and Jasper's like, I don't know how much you heard. Hollyn's like, I didn't hear anything. And he's like, wow, like she cannot lie. Like, she's like the worst liar
like,
I've ever.
You literally have a neurological disorder that like makes it very
gives
difficult
it away.
for you to lie. Like, makes you have involuntary spasms when you're nervous.
What did that just remind me of? Something.
Oh, was it in Knives Out? The main character, Ana de Armas, her character can't lie without throwing up.
Oh, no, yeah.
Remember?
No, yeah, I do, yeah. No, it reminded me of this book I read a long time ago about, like, it was one of those, like, I don't know if Noam Chomsky is the right label to put on this, but, like, you know that theory that, like, language influences, like, how you, like, see the world?
Yeah.
Yeah, that theory. I don't even know. That might be bullshit. I'm not sure if it's true. But the one language they talked about was it's like some South American language where you have to like say the source, like the exact source of all your information. So like if you say I saw an animal in the woods, like if you don't include like the details of like, or if you say like there's an animal in the woods, if you don't include the exact source, like let's say you saw the tracks or like someone told you about it or like you smelled it or like you saw it rustle in the leaf, like if you don't include like all that detail, it's like the same, it's like basically lying, like the way the language is structured.
Oh, wow. That's great. That sounds fabulous.
Yeah, like it's part of like the conjugation, like you would have to like intentionally, like it would be like misleading to like not.
Yeah, so anyway, Jasper decides to bribe Hollyn to like come out of her shell with Skittles, and I respect Hollyn because she doesn't like purple Skittles, because purple Skittles are
red and
repulsive.
purple are the only good Skittles.
Get the fuck out of here.
So
okay,
good.
well,
the other ones are not good.
Clearly are like a match made in
symbiotic relationship.
Yeah. Red Skittles I can tolerate, but purple Skittles are disgusting. Anyway. And then, so they like, I don't know, they play a bunch of improv games, and then like she like tells him about a bad bullying experience she had as a kid where like essentially a boy and his friends held her down and forced her to kiss a rat.
Yes, a boy that she had a crush on.
I was like, what?
I know. And I was like, oh man, I normally wouldn't have expected this, but People We Meet on Vacation had the reckoning with the bully at the end. And so that, I don't know, I just like, now that that's in the cards, I'm like always hoping for it. So I was like really hoping for some kind of reckoning with this bully boy, but it didn't happen. Yeah.
But Jasper does get very he gets furious.
I mean,
he's
who
like,
wouldn't?
so
that's
right. No, but this is the continuing, like, you know how
where'd you even get a rat?
It happened when it was the pet rat. It was a class pet rat. But like it happened one summer when Brendan is constantly getting furious when like Piper talks bad about herself. Like Jasper is constantly getting furious. Like anytime Hollyn even remotely indicates that like she's not worthy of like all the love in the world, he's like, no.
Yeah. Wait a second. Okay. That's a really traumatic bullying episode, and that's like, that'll be so like terrible, and like
she got pulled out of school the next day.
However, I would like to question the rat slander part of it. Like, I don't think you would kiss a dog. Why is kissing the pet rat any grosser.
Well,
being
it's
forced to
because-
kiss anything, that whole situation, terrible. But why the rat? Why are we
They
slandering the
make her
rat?
do the rat because
They call
she
her
does the little
rodent.
nose twitch, so they call her rodent, and
Oh,
so
I
they're
didn't
like, "Oh, kiss the
understand.
rat
I didn't know why
because
they
you're a
called her
rodent."
rodent. Oh.
Because she does the nose twitch, and so whereas Jasper is like, "Oh, like a cute little body," these like dickhead
Yeah.
5th grade boys were like a rat.
Yeah. Well, but the
I
rat
know,
probably was cute. Yeah, and I'm not minimizing it. I'm just saying like why it's not. For some reason I was picturing an added element of like really disgusting, like they somehow found a wild ant, like a frog or like a feral like sewer rat or something. Like that would be like
that is no.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just I think the class pet. So she confesses that, and then they play an improv game where they pretend to like be in bed together,
Yeah.
like in the middle of coitus, and I was like, and this is supposed to be platonic,
right? Like, what are you
insane? They've also like taken shots together, by the way, and so they kiss. And then he, of course, has a moment, which I, is the bare minimum, but I still appreciated it, where he's like, I can't kiss a drunk woman. I can't take advantage of her like that. And that does happen multiple times where multiple different characters are like, I can't take advantage of a drunk person. And I'm like, again, bare minimum, but I appreciate that being verbalized, like that really being hammer honed by this book.
And Hollyn's like, so he's like touching her a lot because in this, and she's like, well, like improv is inherently physical. Like he probably doesn't even notice like how much he's touching me. And Jasper's like, oh my god, like touches like fire. Like I can't.
So like they kiss. They're both essentially like, we kissed and we both want to have sex with each other. But Jasper's like, you deserve more than that. I would just want to use you for sex. You can't do that. And I was like, again, like he can't stop shoving his foot in his mouth. Like, are we sure that Hollyn is the one with social issues? Because like
he definitely
like she just has the facial tics, but Jasper just one social faux pas after the other. God. I was like, sir, you cannot get it together.
Yeah.
And then of course he invites her over to his apartment for a lesson the next day.
Yeah.
He doesn't even have one. You know how usually I'm like, oh, they have 2 brain cells. No, like he doesn't even have one. They're all asleep.
No.
Then she goes over his house the next day, and then she's like, what if I want to use you for your body
She
too?
talks with Andy. Andy's the one who says that. They have like girl chat the next day.
Oh, I only wrote down about Andy is that Andy was like talking about how the serial killer.
No, Andy is the one who like points
out. And then I was like, is she gonna get kidnapped?
Yeah. She's like, gives you nightmares. No, Andy's the one who points out like the irony of that. But like the thing about Jasper, he's constantly saying like, I'm not good enough. Like I would like only be, and I get that I get that like that's his own insecurities, but I feel like in real life, when people tell you who they are, believe them generally. Like if someone's saying, I will not be a good partner for you, like this will not end, like don't be like, oh, you're just not like seeing yourself the way I see you, like you're just not, appreciating it. Like no, take that
you're right.
I know
you're right. Yeah,
it triggers like an instinct of like to make someone else like feel better, but like it's not.
I mean, this relationship does start out because they essentially agree to be friends with benefits. So it doesn't start out with like them entering like into a relationship, even though you're like, this is a romance novel, like totally platonic, friends with benefits, nothing can come of this.
Yeah. And Jasper's like Fitz is there at the apartment or something, they have a conversation. Jasper's like, oh, Fitz will probably like follow up, like invite you to coffee, but like don't let him use it as an excuse to ask you out. And then Hollyn's like, oh, like why not? Jasper's like, you wanted to ask you out? Like like why do I hate that? Why do I want to murder that idea right now?
Oh, he's so jealous. And then they make out and she comes from just making out.
No, there's like some over the clothes.
Oh, okay, some like, but like, he like touches her boobs, but it's like it's nothing, like there's really no like further stimulation.
Really?
It's really just her making out.
Oh, okay.
So she comes and she's like, huh. And then she's like, I could give you like a hand job or whatever. And he's like, that's not how orgasms work. Like they're not a transaction. And then he's like, find a guy who thinks making a woman come is its own reward. And I was like, nice. Appreciate that. Well done. Nice. Cross stitch that.
So
now the next day, the worst scene, or the scene that made me the most anxious, in this whole book.
I know, and it's another example of like Jasper says something really sketchy.
Okay. So what happens? is there. He's like gonna help her like get comfortable in front of the camera. So he's in the workspace, one of the camera rooms. They have like video rooms, and he's setting up his camera. And then they start doing an improv thing, and then naturally they start making out, and then they transition to having sex. And this whole time I was like, wait, I forget. Is the camera on? I was like, is this being recorded? Like, I don't know. I was so stressed. And they just full have sex. And also just the fact that they're doing this in a communal work environment. I was like, and it's not, I don't know. There's like a difference between like making out and like you both work at a corporate office and you're making out and like like for some reason that is better for me because it's like, oh, well, you're like disrespecting the man when you're doing that. But like in a communal workspace where it's just a bunch of like freelancers hanging out, I'm like, y'all.
And something I just thought of, like we learned in the beginning, Hollyn makes a big deal out of how like she doesn't like the glass wall in her cubicle, but like it's okay because she's at the end of the hallway, so she doesn't have to like see people. But like so glass walls are very much a thing here.
I don't think I think like probably like the video recording and the podcasting room are probably like soundproofed or whatever. So, you know what I mean? They're not.
Yeah, they realize that it was filmed, and Jasper's like, never let a dude tape you because you will end up on the internet. And I'm like, all right, that's not like a sketchy thing to say at all. Like what do you?
She doesn't ever end up on the internet. I was like, surely she's gonna accidentally send this to her boss.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we ever get confirmation that they delete it.
No. Well, they keep talking about deleting it. It's so hot.
They watch it together, and I was like, they just gave me so much stress. They gave me everything about this scene stressed me out so much.
It's just like really, I feel like, I don't know. I just feel like Jasper saying that is like very sketchy. Like what? Who says that except someone who would do that?
But it's just like his constant like joking / like foot in mouth disease.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I guess. But it's like when people tell you another example of like when someone tells you who they are.
This is when I wrote down the note, and I don't know what triggered this. I was just like, I got the title. At this point in the book was when I finally understood the title.
That's not even that far in. Pretty good.
All right, the next thing I have is Cal is in town.
So Hollyn is like lying to Cal that Jasper is like her real quote unquote boyfriend.
She hasn't told
him to worry. Right, but she's planning to. And then she's like to Cal, she's like, oh, you're my first official overnight guest in my apartment. And she was like, oh no, like how am I gonna like explain that my quote unquote boyfriend hasn't even slept over? And I'm like, it's very different. Like someone staying, I don't know, like a guest versus that.
Well, I was like, also like, I mean, you could just say the truth, which is that you guys always go to his place. Because, and again, at this point, I was like, it's because you live in a shed, right? Like, I was very confused about that. Like, the word shed was absolutely used to describe her living.
Are you sure it wasn't when she was describing her, like, quote unquote nightmare of, like, tinfoil windows and, like, 6 cats, like, living in a shed?
The shed is referenced multiple times.
This is where I wrote down the number of times they bring up how dangerous it is to be a woman alone. Is there going to be a, quote, rescuing Andy from the kidnapper plotline or something?
Alas, no.
Yeah.
And Cal, like, it's very clear from the beginning, like, you get signs, like, obviously Hollyn doesn't pick up on this, but you get signs that, like, Cal is, like, crushing on her. Like, it's very much like the pining best friend from,
I didn't see that at all.
You know, I saw that and I immediately got so annoyed because, and I mean, the book does resolve this in a satisfactory way, but I was so jazzed when Cal was introduced because I was like, this is great. Like, a man and a woman who are friends, and especially like exes who are friends, and like there's not going to be any like one of them is still in love with each other. Like, this is just a totally normal, healthy relationship. And now it turns out that Cal has been fucking pining for her this whole time. And I just get really, and we've talked about this before, how it's just really, really frustrating for me for women not to be able to be friends with men, like, without them wanting to fuck them.
So they all go, like, they hang out, like Jasper, Cal and Hollyn. And then Hollyn gets really drunk. They come back, and like Cal and Jasper have this like conversation where Cal's basically like, would you like give up your whole career to stay with Hollyn? And Jasper's like, obviously not. Like, why would I want to start out with that resentment? And Cal's like, I would give up my band, like my whatever. Like, I love Hollyn. And Jasper's like, oh, like whatever.
I mean, and I don't know, like, I'm kind of on Jasper's side.
Yeah.
In that situation.
Well, and I'm like, why would you need to give it up? But Cal's basically like, yeah, we dated for a year, but we were so young, and I'm the one who broke it off because I wanted like Hollyn to have a chance to like go out and like date other people and like make sure that she was choosing me, but like I wanted her to come back to me. And like, and
I mean, he wanted to do that too. He was like, I wanted to make sure that we weren't just together.
And then they like stay friends, and like Tell me what you think about this. I feel like my view, okay, men and women can definitely be friends. However, and I won't even narrow it to men and women. People can be friends. People who date and then break up because it doesn't work out for whatever, I feel like can stay friends. But I feel like if you're actually in love with someone, you can't just turn it on and off and like go back to being friends. Maybe right away. Like maybe if you it's been a few years, like you're different people, you can like become friends, once you like had time. But like I just feel like that's like if Cal and Hollyn were able to date and then break up and like stay friends the entire time, I feel like it's like obvious that you're not actually like romantically like you're not actually in love with that person, like,
No, I agree. I was like I was like, Cal, get your head out of your fucking ass. And also, like,
Yeah. So he's
Cal is
so
like constantly,
paternalistic
he's
too.
applying. Yeah, right. He's like constantly like, you're just using her, Jasper, to like further your career. Like, you don't actually love her. Like, and he's constantly, and Hollyn does call out Cal for this at one point, where like Cal essentially implies that like there's no reason that a guy like Jasper, that like a hot guy like Jasper who's like personable, would want to be with you if it wasn't like
To
some sort
use
of
you.
gain for
Yeah.
him. And I was like, that is like, you're such a dick. And he's constantly like, oh, I just don't want her to get hurt. And I'm like, no, like, yeah, you're just like being a controlling dick. And like, I mean, Hollyn's mother isn't really like a big plot point, but it is very much like Hollyn's mother over sheltered her and like contributed to a lot of her social anxiety because she took her out of school and then never really like allowed her to socialize. And I was like, it kind of feels like what you're doing, Cal. That
Right.
you're like, I'm the only person who could understand her because she's
Right.
so different. And I'm like, she has a neurological disorder, but like that, she's still a person.
Right. And well, the paternalism element that I was mostly thinking of was like just him saying like I'm gonna be the one to like, because I guess yeah, definitely it's clear from his like actions and behavior that it was also like selfishly, like he wanted, not selfishly, but like he wanted for himself to be able to date other people and make sure. But he never
Yeah.
says that. He's always like, I wanted to make sure Hollyn was like had all her options, blah blah blah. And I'm like, all right, so you decided to enforce options on her, but you still constantly like were expecting her to come back, like that's just you didn't ask her, you didn't like, you should have explained that. I don't know, like you should be,
No,
you
I
can't,
mean,
you're assuming people's answers for them, like
Cal sucks here. And I was like getting very angry at Cal in this scene and like, 2 scenes from now. And like it does resolve, but I was like, this was probably the most steamed I was like the entire book. This whole like Cal just being the worst. I was like, I was like, Cal can go like drown in the bayou for all I care. Like, fuck off. Like, whatever.
I was initially like, why aren't they dating anyway? Like,
And yeah, so then Jasper was gonna leave, but then like after Cal gives this whole speech, he's like, I am not gonna leave him alone with drunk Hollyn so he can like curl in bed next to her. And it's not like he's like, because I think he's gonna assault her, but he's just like, no, he's gonna like try to make a move. Anyway, he goes in and Hollyn wakes up and she says, you've literally been inside my body. We can share a bed for the night. And I fully resented this line. And I was very glad that Jasper was like, that was a very weird thing for you to say. Please never say that again. He's like, never say you have literally been inside my body ever.
Yeah.
Great. But anyway, they wake up in the morning and they're both not drunk anymore. And they have some sexy times. And he reveals a fantasy he was like, I like have a fantasy of a woman getting a tattoo of my name somewhere that only I can see. And I was like, I'm not a kink shamer, but this is really pressing up against my limit. I don't know, and like it's presented as like she's like, oh, because like he's never had anything permanent. Like
yeah,
he
like
wants
a picture of like a
so
little kid.
I understand this, but I was still like, I just in general, I think tattooing the name of your partner is like bad move bears. And I was like, imagine like she tattoos that on her ass and like now you have like she just has your name on her ass. And then even if she gets it removed, like if you break up, like her name, I was just like,
it's a red flag.
I was like, is it? And he does. He's like, I know it's very like, misogynistic, like all of this shit. So like he like recognizes it. And I was like, I understand why he does it. But I was like, it didn't cross my limit, but it really pushed against it real quick.
Yeah. But so they don't do that, thankfully. But Hollyn does take out a Sharpie and she's like, I'll let you write it like wherever. And then Like
he writes it in her thigh. And at this point I was like, I don't know, aren't Sharpies like kind of toxic? Like would this cause some sort of like STI or something, like some sort of infection?
An STI?
STI, like some sort of infection. Like, is this like
transmitted illness?
Like Sharpie transmitted illness. A whole new category. It's the new pandemic.
Truly. Jasper's a quote when she takes the Sharpie, Jasper's teeth pressed into his bottom lip, making him look feral. Cat.
Nice.
Doesn't quite compensate.
Anthony Bridgerton, is that you? No, Jasper was nothing like Anthony Bridgerton, except for perhaps that he was constantly putting his foot in his mouth. I do feel like Anthony does also suffer from a lesser form of foot and mouth disease. So Jasper leaves, and then Cal decides to get even worse.
Oh, wait. So Hollyn gives him a blowjob, and then they have sex. And this is something I hope this doesn't like impede my enjoyment of romance novels going forward, but every time, I don't know, I recently came across a TikTok account that like, I don't paradigm shifting might be too strong of a word, but basically like it's this woman and she's like, everyone's having sex wrong. Like basically like whenever they're like, oh, we were going so deep, like there's literally no reason to do that because your G-spot is only 2 inches in. Like it's all about like just the right like friction, and like don't like poking is not the move. You want to scoot, like I don't like okay, like imagine you're sitting in a chair, you wrap your legs around the chair legs, and you're just like scooting forward. Okay. That's more the move, right? And so now every time
is that not what people do?
But like the in and out, like super deep. Like the only thing, if you're going deep, the only thing back there is your fucking cervix. Which there are reports. Okay. Some people claim to be able to get cervical orgasms, and I'm not, whatever. But the fact is, there's like not really any nerves back there, and for most people, it's gonna be you feel nothing or it's painful. Like it's not great.
Sure. I mean, I just think in general, am I surprised that like modern men don't know how to have sex, or modern people with penises? No.
Yeah, well that's the thing, it's like porn's like that, like that's all people see, so you don't know what to copy. If the scooting thing doesn't make sense for you, picture like dry humping, right? Like people dry hump as like teenagers, and that feels good, and then you move, like you basically just want to be wet humping, you know, but instead of like the slapping noise, like poking, like that's not, you know what I mean? Like it's about the friction. Otherwise you don't feel anything for like a woman. Like obviously men do no matter what, but like you're trying to wet hump. You're not trying to like poking the in, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, take notes, people.
Okay.
Well, I just feel like it's
we'll link that woman's TikTok in the show notes. Yes. So Jasper leaves. Are you done? Wait, I just want to make sure that you've completed. Okay. Yeah. So Jasper leaves, and Kyle just basically immediately is like, time to slut shame Hollyn for having sex with someone that I've been told is her boyfriend. And then I'm also going to tell her Jasper's words about how he would leave her for his career. And I'm going to take them really out of context and tell her about them. And then I'm going to tell her that I'm moving to New Orleans. And then I'm going to kiss her against her will. And then I'm going to confess my love. And then I'm going to tell her that she's basically an idiot for developing feelings for Jasper, and in general I am just going to be the worst person ever. And I'm also going to be like, Jasper knows that I have feelings for you. Like, Jasper left you alone this morning with me. I would never let a guy who I knew liked my girl be alone with her. And I'm like, okay,
because you're so paternalistic.
I was like, or maybe Jasper respects her as a goddamn person and like isn't a jealous asshole,
right? And also that's what you've been doing for the past 5 years. That was your whole MO, is to let her be with other people and hope that she comes back to you. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? That's what you did for 5 years, you dumbass. Also, this was he says this one line, which I thought was a really low blow. It's not presented as that in the book, but he's like, this guy Jasper, like, I know you. Crushes get you crushed. Like, please don't do that to yourself. And I was like, I don't know. For me, that just like seemed like he was referencing Rat Boy, you know, because it's a boy that like she had a crush on, and he found out, and he was like, come kiss me beneath the tree, and then like he made her, you know, kiss the rat. Yeah, so it was just like a very low blow. Yeah,
no, it was Cal. Cal is like, really at this point I was like, perhaps the finale of this book will be Andy getting kidnapped by the serial killer, and Cal, Jasper, and Hollyn have to go rescue Andy in the bayou, and then like Cal has to sacrifice himself to save Andy, so Cal dies. and then everybody else.
Oh
I
my
was like, that would be the
gosh.
ideal resolution for me.
Yeah.
That's not the resolution, and Cal does like, chill the fuck out, but like, yeah, there's some pretty low blows here.
Anyway. So okay. So all right. Hollyn is like now very confused. She basically avoids Jasper for like 2 days and like lies to him and says that Cal is still there.
Yeah,
As
Cal
like an
leaves immediately. He
excuse.
was
Right.
supposed to be there for the 2 days, but he's like, I'm gonna give you space. So that is okay. A tiny little green flag for Cal is that he's like, I'm gonna leave. I'm not gonna stay in your house after I've like told you all of this.
Oh God. Yeah, and
In
it's
her
just
shed,
like
sorry.
it's just like, and even just like the Cal has all the like Cal what I say and what I do is very different. Like he's like, yeah, I wanted you to like date other people and like make sure you like had the right move. Except that he waits 5 years and the second she actually dates someone else, he immediately spills the beans. So like what was this like? Anyway, so meanwhile, Jasper has a convo with Fitz where Fitz is like, yo, bro, like I got 3 investors that are interested, but they want to come see a show to make sure, because that's what made, so is the theater just for the one act, whatever.
I don't know.
He's like, I need you to guarantee a packed house. Like it needs to seem really popular. And Jasper's like, well, if I could do that, like I wouldn't need this theater for some reason. I don't know. And then Jasper like lets it slip. Like Jasper's
No,
oh, I
Fitz
can get
figures it out.
I can get a Ms. Poppy review. And Fitz is like, who's the only new person you've met in the past like few weeks? Like it's a fucking Hollyn.
It's Hollyn. And he's basically like, you should have her like reveal herself at the show because like she's gonna reveal herself anyway, and like you can get her to give you a good review. And Jasper's like, oh, I feel so guilty, but I've got to ask Hollyn to participate in the show and give me a good review, and then I will never see her again because she deserves someone who will give up their dream for her.
Like I make no, he's like, I can't ask this of someone I'm dating, so therefore the solution is to
break up with her. And he's like, oh, she'll be with Cal. He's like, one brain cell Jasper is like, okay, Hollyn, you should be with Cal. And I'm like, well, like maybe she could just be with neither of you. Like, why did she have to go
when
back
she
to
does
one?
figure so then we have like so we knew that Hollyn has been in therapy this whole time and she's mentioned Mary Lee a few times, but then we actually get on-screen therapist combo, which I feel like is rare. Like I feel there's so many books where they're just like, yeah, and then I went like they throw in therapy as like a cure-all at the end, but they don't actually like have it, but they actually show a conversation. So Mary Lee like talks her through it. She's like, what's the worst that can happen if you tell Jasper how you feel? Like, and Hollyn's like, well, it's not a choice. She's like, yeah, I can't like date Cal if I still have feelings for Jasper. So it's like Jasper would be single. So like she does like work through that. I don't know. I just like that the therapist, she was like, it's Jasper's problem. Like he doesn't want to date you, but like don't decide his answer before, like make sure you ask them. And then like she talks to Andy and has like a girls' night, and she's like, oh well, at least like if I break up with both of these like boys, I can have another friend at least and like to equalk with or whatever. I was like, I appreciate that. But they meet for a picnic. Jasper asked her to come to a picnic to pitch his idea, and he brings a muffaletta. Do you know what a muffaletta is?
No, it doesn't sound that appealing though.
I looked it up. It is an Italian sandwich, but it's made on like basically picture bread in the shape of a cheese wheel. Like right, but it's like a giant sandwich. Look it up. It's a giant sandwich and you share it with like, it's like very fun. I don't know. I really enjoyed. It's like, this sounds like delicious, and you know what? It looks delicious.
It really is just like a cheese wheel sandwich.
Yes, exactly.
That's insane.
Yeah. It looks really fun.
A lot of meat, though.
It's meat. I know. But I like the concept of like a nice shareable sandwich. I don't know. Like,
yeah, it's great.
Right?
Like a pizza, but a sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Jasper is basically like, I gotta ask Hollyn to give me a good review, and then I'm gonna break up with her. And he's like, Hollyn, you should be with Cal. And Hollyn is basically like, okay, listen. I know that you have one brain cell. I know it. I accept it. I don't care if you're stupid, but you're not going to be stupid with me. So I like you. We're not breaking up. We're going to be boyfriend and girlfriend. And he's like, okay, I like you too.
Yeah. And there was a few like, I thought, I don't know, at least I read them as Bachelor references, because Jasper's like, if we keep up with this, like I'm at high risk of falling in love with you. And I was like, Bachelor producers, take note. That's a good line to feed people. And then when she shows up for the picnic, he's like, I just want her to run up to me and like jump hug me. What was the phrase you said it
Hooju.
was called? Hooju. And then we get an actual hooju on screen later on
Yes.
page.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So then they're boyfriend and girlfriend, and they immediately go and fuck like bunnies in her shed. And I do like that it is canon that Jasper regularly replaces the condom in his wallet, because we get multiple references to him being, oh, thank God I have a condom in my wallet, which he must be right. He's got to be replacing them because they're using the condoms. I was like, good for you, Jasper. Like, nice.
Oh, wait. This was from the painting scene still, but this seemed like such a great song lyric. I feel like back to the marker. Jasper's like, I need to break up with her, but like for a minute he'd written his name on her skin, but that marker had washed off by now. I don't know. I just feel like that imagery. I know you don't like the marker thing, but I just feel like that. I don't know. Something about that.
No, the marker thing is fine because it's not permanent.
Yeah.
It's the tattoo that is permanent.
Yeah.
The tattoo is what I have an issue with. Yeah. So anyway, they fuck like bunnies, and then Hollyn is like, well, wait, what were you gonna tell me? And he is like, well, I was gonna ask you to do a live reveal of Miss Poppy and then like write a review for me, but like I'll figure something else out. Like I'd never ask you to do that. Like I don't want to use you like that. I know it would make you uncomfortable. And she's basically like, hang on. If I publicly reveal myself as Ms. Poppy, then they can't fire me.
But that doesn't
because they can't replace me, because everyone will know I have Tourette's, because I'll talk about I have Tourette's. And then she's like, then they can't fire me, because if they fire, like everyone would be like, ew, I can't believe you fired her because she had Tourette's.
Okay, that makes sense, because I was wondering why like it would be any different than, but
she was also like I was also worried, like, even if we do make these videos,
right,
that
they
like
would fire
he's gonna
her,
see my ticks and they'll fire me anyway.
I have no idea. I mean, she's an independent contractor, or she would be an employee at that point. Yeah. How would the ADA not protect you? And I feel like somehow it wouldn't, because they would be like it's
entertainment is like
or whatever.
such a
But like that just seems so shitty. Yeah,
it's very shitty. Yeah. So anyway, so now they're preparing for the show and it's gonna be great, and they're doing a rehearsal, but oh no, Kenzie's back and she's offering him a role in their Netflix show. And this dumbass is like, yeah, I'll fly to LA to audition for the show
on Friday
night. And then I will just leave early Saturday morning and make it back in time for the improv show on Saturday night. And I was like, Boo Boo the Fool, what are you doing?
He doesn't set an alarm or nothing. Like, dumbass.
Well, he gets super drugged. Like, that's not like he sleeps through his alarm.
Like, no, but okay. This is another example of Jasper putting his foot. Well, not totally Jasper putting his foot in his mouth, but like Hollyn interrupts when he's talking to Kenzie, and then she overhears Kenzie being like, "What's like wrong with that girl?" or something, and like Hollyn doesn't hear Jasper's reaction. So, and also Jasper,
she's just in general, she's just like,
Jasper doesn't introduce Hollyn as his girlfriend. He's like, this is Hollyn, she's going to be on our show, not like she's a girlfriend.
He does immediately realize that was stupid, like immediately after the interaction.
Also, this is a question, like this is yet another thing that doesn't really add up. Like, maybe it does, it's entertainment law, like it's so shit, but or whatever, like but the show that Kenzie is on, Aurora Boring, it's like, it's based on a skit that she and Jasper used to do with like Aurora Boring and Eddie Ecstatic, and that's the part they want Jasper for. But he helped write it, so like, how can they just like take characters and skit concept that like he wrote and use it as a show, and he's not getting compensated at all? Like,
I don't know. Yeah, those are his original characters.
Either the author or me has like a fundamental lack of understanding on this like area of like.
So anyway, so then he's basically like, I will choose being a famous actor over you, and she's like, very understandably, she's like, well, yeah, like I would never ask my partner to not like pursue that, like, in a very reasonable thing. And it's like kind of portrayed as like, oh no, like if he loved you, he would choose you. And I'm like, listen, if I had a dream, like a career goal, like, and my partner was like, don't do that for like not an actual like tangible reason, I'd be like I would never do that to my partner, and I wouldn't want my partner to do that to me.
She doesn't, it's like not on the table at all for her to go with him. I mean, she's basically, I mean, and I guess like it's played off as like, oh, of course, like I would just hate that environment, like whatever. But like,
well, no, she's also like, I would have to start from scratch. She's like, Ms. Poppy is very regionally known. Like, I wouldn't be able to bring that with me. Yeah, either way. This is another situation. He's like, I fell in love with you. And then he doesn't say it back. And then he's like, you should be with Cal. And once again, I was like, or she could be with neither of you two losers, because right now you suck. Both of you can go and live in the bayou together. And you can take her shed and go live in the bayou, and she can live in the penthouse with Fitz.
Right. Or you could do distance for a while. I'm sorry, I'm still like, and figure it out, like, because he's not going to be mega famous instantly. Like, not every Netflix show does. Like, and if he's making it money, like, why do you care about? I don't know.
I just whatever. It's very complex. Anyway, Jasper auditions, and the reason he bombed the audition the first time is because he kept like improving, but like this time he like sticks to the script and the stage directions, but like he hates it. He's like, I feel so constrained. Then they're like, you get the part. And then this man gets drunk, like wickedly drunk, and then sleeps in the same bed with his goddamn ex. But there's no sex. You do think there may have been sex for a moment, but there is no sex. And Kenzie, this is a situation when Kenzie specifically, she's like, I'm not a date rapist. Like, I wasn't gonna have sex with you. You were that drunk. And I was like, good for you, Kenzie. Again, bare minimum, but good for you. And then he oversleeps. He misses his flight. And then like he's not gonna make it in time for the show. And it's very like High School Musical 3, Troy Bolton, like having to drive back from visiting Gabriella, not making it for the show.
Yeah, I don't.
Is that too niche?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I watched that movie in theaters, but I need to. Yeah. He made. Oh! This was ridiculous. He tries to text her, and she gets the text, and it's something like, sorry, missed my flight. And then it cuts off, and she's like, oh, his phone must have died mid-text. I'm like, what century are we living in? What are you talking about? Like, maybe that could have I don't know. Like, maybe I don't.
Okay. So I initially thought they were texting, but then I was like, well, maybe it's a voicemail. Maybe he tried to call her, and that's what's being described.
No, it was a text.
Because at this point, I was listening to the book. Cut off. At this point, I was listening to the book at 3 times speed because I was trying to like finish it before we recorded this, and I wasn't totally clear about this.
No, it was text because I
don't know. It's silly, yeah. But speaking of other interactions, she like calls Cal and it's basically like, Cal, even if like Jasper and I broke up, like I don't feel that way about you. And Cal is like, yeah, well, I figured like you wouldn't have let me leave. And then he's like, I deserve someone who won't let me leave. And I was like, suck a dick, Cal. And then but he was like, yeah, like I think I just like built it up in my head, and we're better off as friends, and it is resolved, and it's like fine. He's not, besides the comment about I deserve someone who will go after me, he's not like bitter or like mean about it. So I was like, all right, I forgive you,
I
Cal.
mean,
you
that's
can
basically
live.
I mean, that's fair. Like,
no, it is. I know, but it's just like the way that it was said, like in the conversation, I was like, that sounds a little bit snarky, Cal.
Something we should mention is that so Jasper has gotten the role, but his first thought is like, good, now I've gotten the role. Like everyone will know, my birth parents, my foster parents, my teachers who got frustrated with him. Like they'll all know that I can be a success. So I feel like that was good because it kind of, I don't know, it kind of showed that like this whole like life goal was kind of just like to prove to other people that he could do it. And then like now that he has it, he's like, I don't actually want this, which like I very much relate to. Like I'm just like wanting stuff because you don't have
and even that like with the auditioning, the fact that like he loves improving so much, he's like, so it's not like acting like in the strict sense that I like, it's like this specific type of performing,
which is good because like if he didn't get the role and they ended up together, that would have been cheap and like not a satisfying story.
He has to make the choice. He has to make the choice to be with
whereas
her.
Like if it was actually his like life goal, he actually wanted, he still like did it, like gave it up for no reason, like that also would have been not great.
It would have been frustrating.
I feel like like realizing that like
this isn't for me. Like I was actually because he has a moment, he's like, I didn't realize like how happy I actually was in New Orleans, like with all the people, like I had my friends and my family, and like I had Hollyn, like I was actually like building a pretty good life. So he's rushing to try and get back, but he certainly does not before the beginning of the show. And so they do the show, and they're doing the show, and Hollyn is pretending to be like on a blind dating show, like this thing where like on opposite sides of the panel, and like the Bachelorette is asking like contestant number 1 questions, and it's like it's funny. And then of course Bachelor number 3 is Jasper confessing his feelings and apologizing, and I was like, I appreciate these words. I wish you wouldn't have delivered them in front of a crowd. I am begging you, listener, in real life. I am begging you, listener, if you are a writer of books, stop putting people on the spot when you're doing like
in the epilogue. I mean, not to like jump ahead, but in the epilogue, he's going to propose, and he specifically says like, there's a rumor going around that like I'm gonna propose tonight, and she's like, who could have started that? And he's like, I would never propose like on stage.
I would never do it in front of an audience.
And I'm like, you did. I don't know.
You did that. I hate like don't put people on the spot like that. And also because like Hollyn's whole thing, like yes, her whole character arc is like getting self-confidence and being more comfortable, like performing in front of people and being more public. But I was like, I don't know, this feels like a grand gesture that would be geared toward you. Like if she needed to grand gesture him, her appearing on stage would be much more like, okay, like she understands him. She's like showing she's willing to like work and sacrifice for this relationship.
Right.
It didn't feel like a grand gesture for her. And I mean, I understand why it was done this way because like we've been building up to this big improv show the whole book, like of course that's going to be the finale, like narratively it makes sense. But I think that's also just one of the things that I struggle most with grand gestures, like not just the fact when they're like in front of an audience or there's like some sort of like definitely external pressure, whether you meant it that way or not, but like when the grand gesture is just like, oh, it's just a grand gesture, like it's just a generic grand gesture instead of something that's like specifically geared toward like, this is how I fucked up, this is how I'm like making amends, this shows that like I understand you and like I've grown from the person who like fucked up in the first place.
Well, it's like the nicknames. It's like the pet names. It's like, why give me a reason. Just I don't need a big. I just need a reason. Me a reason. Just a little. Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, grand gestures. They make up. Jasper's gonna get the theater because the investors are excited. Hollyn is sometimes gonna be a special guest. They go home. They fuck in her shed. And all the final note that I have before the epilogue is: does she live in a shed or not?
Is it like a facetious shed? Like I live in a shed. Like I can't even afford a shed. I don't know.
Can someone who's like
maybe it's a tiny
with their
home,
eyeballs,
but like it's a shed. You know, get those like prefabricated.
Can someone who's like read this book with their eyeballs, like please clarify me what kind of abode Hollyn lives in, because I can't. This was only available at one library and only on audiobook, so I don't have access to the ebook.
Wait, where'd you get it?
Hoopla, yeah.
Okay. Hollyn's like, part of her couldn't believe he was hers, but maybe she could because she was pretty damn fantastic herself.
And I was like, yeah! Like freeze frame, stars in the background. Like that's what I was meant. Epilogue. She started a podcast because she did do the videos for a while. And she's like, I don't really like it that much. I can't do it, but I would rather be a podcaster. And I do like that this book is not like, yeah, true love is going to make you like suddenly like get over your actual neurological disorders. And like, it's not like, yeah, like true love is going to suddenly stop making you be depressed or have anxiety or like all these things. It's like, true love helps you like learn to accept and live with those.
See, that's where it was like one of the takeouts for me. Well, I like that she has the realization of like being capable of something and actually enjoying it. Turned out to be two different things. It's kind of like similar to Jasper's thing. But I was kind of hoping it would turn into, because she's like, being on video meant I have to try to suppress my tics, so it's really exhausting and like isn't fun. You know, it's like really tiring and I don't like it. But I was hoping it would turn out to be like. Turns out I can just say fuck it, like have my tics on camera, and turns out people still want to watch, you know?
Yeah.
So then he proposes. Hollyn, darling Tate, want to be a dearest?
Listen, I appreciated the name puns. That was good.
I did. Yeah. No, yeah.
Well done. I did enjoy that through line throughout the book.
Yeah. That's a wrap.
The end. Thank you, listener, for suggesting this book. Cat scale, baby.
Very low. Like that one Jasper biting his lip and looking feral is the closest.
But even that, like that could be a dog.
No, it could be a bat. Like who knows?
Hollyn's allergic to cats, so like God, it's like a negative 5 points right there.
Yeah, and she has curly hair, which is like a very poodle. You know, it's like a very like not poodle, but like dog hair texture, not cat hair texture.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jasper felt very golden.
I have no idea what Jasper looks like. I don't know if we ever got a physical description of him.
Like buff and blonde. I was imagining blonde.
No, I was picturing dark hair versus green. Not dark hair, like auburn hair versus auburn hair, like maybe green eyes were mentioned. I have no idea.
Oh, wait. Okay, so I just had another realization about the cover. Because I was just thinking, I was like, wait, Hollyn has blonde hair. Like, why is the woman on the cover?
Why tricked you?
Black hair. And I was like, oh, I just realized now that it's Miss Poppy. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So many like revelations coming out of this, like the cover design. Who designed the cover for this? Like, I'd love to chat, like, because what a complex design. Like,
Oh, I mean, is it
very
complex?
interesting.
It makes total sense. It's an interesting
I
choice
know, but
for a
I'm saying like it's
romance,
not like I
though.
was like very interesting, like that
It's very
you.
unusual that they went with that. Like, I get it, but it's very atypical for a romance. Like, based on this
It was
cover.
interesting, yeah, because this wasn't. It felt very much like a women's fiction cover, but I
Yes,
would say this was
exactly.
solidly romance.
It reminded. I'd say it was solidly romance, but the rest of the book was much more like, like it was. They both had very, very well developed personal growth journeys that were not entirely dependent on each other. That had like strong
but they
elements
also
of being
were
outside
because
yeah.
like they also did overcome those things
cover
because of
reminds
their
me
relationship with each other.
Of Where'd You Go, Bernadette?
Yeah. Anyway, cat scale 3, 2, 1,
3,
1.
1. Okay.
I mean, I'm just thinking of the other books
I had to
that we
deduct
gave
2 for
one.
allergy. Yeah.
Like we gave Destiny's Surrender, like I think a
Yeah.
2, and this definitely was a lower cat scale than that.
Yeah, I guess so.
Like Billy was definitely more cat-like than any other character.
Yeah.
You know,
And then we have Andy, who's like very dog-like.
Yeah, a cat
Like,
would never listen to serial
no.
killer things if it scared them. A cat would never be scared by serial killer.
Right, exactly. Like the cat would be the serial killer. Yeah. No.
So a 2. So we're at a 2, right?
Mm-hmm. Where can they find us?
You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at We Read It One Night, on Twitter at We Read It Podcast. You can also find us on Redbubble, where we sell our merchandise, some stickers, mugs, and t-shirts with potential new designs coming soon at We Read It One Night on Redbubble. And you can email us, We Read It One Night at gmail.com. If, for example, you would like to do another listener suggestion. Listener Suggestion Central. Send us all your books that you want us to do, or slide into our DMs, which is what the person who suggested this book did.
Nice.
Or write it in your review, which you will write after listening to this. If you're listening to an Apple Podcast, you will give us a rating and you will write a physical review, right? Of course. And then you will also give us a rating on Spotify. And if any other podcast service that you're listening to allows you to do a rating and review, also do it there, please, because it really helps us. That good algorithm is like, look, straight numbers, more reviews. We will show it to more people so that everyone can become a comrade.
Yes. Woohoo! Godspeed, comrades.
Godspeed.